I said, wait a minute, is everybody alright? How can everybody be alright? Think about the people starving in Ethiopia. Think about my brothers struggling for power in South Africa. The wicked oppressor keep on trying to keep them under. Tell me, Lord, how long do my people have to suffer? No, I'm a warrior, I'm a fighter for what I stand for, and that's my total freedom. Said I'm a warrior, and I'm a fighter. Yes, I know I'm gonna have to fight on for my total freedom. Yeah, oh yeah.
Good morning, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, supporters, activists, citizens in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean region and across the world, where you may be joining us for our regular midweek press conference in Port of Spain, Trinidad. We're extremely pleased to be here this morning to again alert the nation and the wider community of some of the critical issues facing our republic at this time, to raise critical matters in the public domain, to discuss with you current affairs as it affects the society and the economy in Trinidad and Tobago. This morning, it is my pleasure to be joined by a very dynamic former Minister of Sports, former Member of Parliament, and now Senator, the Honorable Anil Roberts, this morning for our press conference. And we will be dealing with several matters now occupying the front pages and other pages in the newspapers in Trinidad and Tobago, and matters that have been in the public space, attracting comments from columnists, writers, and so on. And of course, we are duty bound to respond to statements made by the Prime Minister about 48 hours ago or so in his press conference. So all of that will be happening now in the next hour and a half or so. So we invite you to relax, to listen carefully, members of the press and members of the national community who may have access to the technology. You're free, of course, to submit questions to us, both of us, at the end of our presentation. So without further ado, I'll ask Senator Anil Roberts to give us his presentation at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Political Leader of the United National Congress. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. In the words of Black Stalin, when there are constitutional issues, there are isms, schisms, and sometimes the rank and file people who are worrying about food prices, the flooding, getting their children to school, the crime situation, they sometimes get scared when you hear constitution and constitutionality, and they think that that is just for lawyers and so on. So we in the United National Congress, we take our lead from our leader who said, serve the people. So we're going to break it down for you, nuts and bolts. It is a constitutional crisis, a constitutional conundrum that exists. And let's start from the basic level. It's all about intent. Now, what do you want as people? In your ism, schism, do you want freedom? Do you want freedom of speech? Do you want freedom of worship, freedom to select a political party, freedom to dance, freedom to run? This is what we supposed to have in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a democracy. What are the tenets of a democracy? It all begins with the intent. You see, the Prime Minister came up and he copied from the Express newspaper a sort of a pedantic, puerile argument that the Constitution, this Constitution, is only the words printed here. That's absolute nonsense. The Constitution begins with intent. That's the spirit of the Constitution. What's the purpose of a Constitution? What do we want? And we can say with a resounding yes that we, the people, and the UNC knows, because we are on the ground. We don't sit up in ivory towers and hijack funerals of great legends and so on and stay away from the people. We are part and parcel of the people. We touch the people. We touch the farmers. We are on the ground in the floods. We don't go to help people in floods for photo ops. We don't stay on golf courses while people are drowning and people have lost everything. So the people want to uphold their democracy. So what is the intent? You have to look at the intent of the leaders. So you have a prime minister who has come in 7 years and he has oppressed the people. He has thwarted and thrown his P&M Balizé juice into every independent institution. Why does he do that? What is the intent? You can have intent to be a good person. Your intention, for example, if you're in a boxing match and you know that you're skillful and you've trained and you're fit and you can bob and weave and you know the sweet science and you've put in the work, you've listened to your trainers, you go into that boxing match secure that in fairness, your skill will overcome the opponent and you will win. If you're not good and you have not trained and you're overweight and you don't listen to your coach and you're arrogant and you're a bully, but you talk a good game, but you're not good, you're not going to win unless you cheat. So you're going to have to try to do something to cheat. You're going to try and put something in your glove. So when you cuff the man, you're cuffing with a piece of iron. You're going to try to put some cream so that when you're in the clench, you rub it in the eye and you blind him. You're going to try and bribe the referee or pay off the judges. You have to cheat to win. If you're in an exam and you study hard, you go to school, you listen to your teachers, you put in the work daily, you understand, you ask questions, you revise, you put a plan, you get out there, you lower your heart rate and you take your exam. The logical conclusion of that is success. But if you're lazy and you want to jam and wine and you want to dance and wine on Dorothy and you don't want to study and you want to party and you don't want to put in the work and you don't have discipline and you don't revise and you don't take notes and you cuss the teacher, more than likely you're going to fail. So what you need to do? You need to cheat in the exam. This is the intent. You have to start off in this constitutional conundrum with intent. In elections, for example, if you intend to win an election which requires the mass of people to vote for you, and in your heart you go and your philosophy is to serve the people, to take the resources paid for by the people and distribute it equitably so that people across the board have opportunity to advance and thrive, to serve the people, to serve the differently able, to serve single mothers, to serve everybody, regardless of creed, race, ethnicity. If you want to ensure that people's roads are good, people have access to education, people have access to sport and culture, and there is no nepotism, no recusals, no one man spending $6 billion in charge who is your good friend, no lawyers on board so that they could keep your secrets. If you intend to serve the people well, then you don't need to cheat. Come and then people Spanish down by Balizé house, but you all don't want to know about that, how it going up. Okay, but we have to determine what is the intent of Keith Christopher Rowley as Prime Minister. Is it a righteous intent? Is he inspiring the population to love him, to treat him, to uphold him, to vote for him because he treats them well, he doesn't tax them, he has the roads running well, people are getting water, when there floods he's out there, he shows his heart and soul? Is that his intention? Or is it his intention to do what he wants to do for himself and a few, and then gerrymander, hoodwink the system, use the constitution in any form or fashion to help him remain in power, to thwart your democracy? Which one is it? Well, let's see. There should be separation of powers. This leads to independence. And if you believe in merit, then the majority will, the feel, the love, and the philosophy will come true. What does the PNM believe in merit? Even in scholarships, they stop scholarships and turn it to bursaries so that they can hand out money to those who did not earn it. The UNC is the opposite. We believe in the merit. Whoever works hard and earns it gets support. End of story. Now, criminal intent requires total control, interlocking directorships, unequal playing field, overt and covert influence, political influence. Now, this is needed for a person who has criminal intent, because otherwise they cannot win. They cannot inspire population. People won't love them and vote for them. They have to rig the system in order to remain there, because they don't engender love, positivity, belief, or support. Rowley always says, the UNC, corrupt, thieves, banned, brigands, all every time out of his mouth. Well, let's analyze it very carefully, because we're trying to see if Rowley has righteous intent or criminal intent. UNC, thieves, corrupt, but yet Kamla Prasad Bisesa in 5 years brought strong procurement legislation from scratch, got it passed with a special majority and left it there. What did Rowley do? Not only did he leave it there, he told his Attorney General, excuse me, sir, that legislation that Kamla passed there, that had too much security. The money, the people money, too safe. Go in the Parliament and the Senate, water it down, got that, take out different things. The money, take out different procurement elements. Go in the Parliament and the Senate, different aspects of the people's money that we have to spend, so that the money not secure. And he went in the Parliament, and an independent senator voted for that, to legalize stealing, to legalize thieving, to make it easier to steal people's money. But Rowley calls other people corrupt. Let's continue. I'm taking my time here this morning. Kamla Prasad Bisesa said one person for one board, one chairman for one board. Why? The more eyes you have on money and decision making, the further the decision makers are from the decision creators or the goods providers, the less opportunity for stealing, the less opportunity for corruption. So Kamla Prasad Bisesa, if there were 153 boards, there were 153 chairpersons, whether male or female. There was only one board per one person. So it was very difficult for anyone who wanted to be corrupt, because you had all kind of eyes watching you at every time. You had tender committee, you had board notes, board minutes, advertisement, tenders, approval. What did Keith Rowley do? Rowley has Noel Garcia, his good friend of 40 years, a man who also was condemned by a commission of inquiry into Las Alturas, spending and building every single thing under the sun. Sports stadium, airport, hospital, health center, community center, police station, every house in Trinidad and Tobago, Red House, President's House, Prime Minister residence in Tobago, all and sundry built by one man. Is it easier for this system with one person and interlocking directorships, and Ingrid Lashley on 9 board, and Eustace Narcisse on 6 board, and Newman George on 5 board, and Rowley's own personal attorney, that even if the police went to ask him what Rowley tell him, he cannot divulge because of attorney-client privilege. Which one is it easier to steal in? Which one can illustrate and point you towards criminal intent? Kamla and her one person for one board and no family members of ministers on boards, or Rowley, friend and family and all his neighbors in Inez Gate in Tobago, controlling at least 70% of all the money in Trinidad and Tobago? Which one is more apt to allude to criminal intent? Let us assess Rowley under this rubric and continue. In the Parliament, Rowley puts a speaker. Now, the Constitution says that you should appoint a speaker, and the government, which is the party that has the majority, could select or elect a speaker and so on. But the convention, through the spirit of the Constitution over the years, has brought up speakers like Hector McLean, who said the government will have its way, so the opposition must have its say, and he did everything in his power to allow the opposition to speak. Rowley puts a speaker and a president of the Senate who thwart the opposition at every juncture, that with or without standing orders curtail the speaking time of the opposition. The opposition brought up certain motions. to speak on national public importance like COVID-19, a pandemic, a global pandemic. Never before in our lifetimes have we seen something like that. And Rowley's PNM speaker says that does not qualify as an urgent, as national importance. Crime with 614 murders, that's not urgent. Flooding affecting 500,000 people, losing everything in their houses and their homes, 2 people dead, that's not urgent. Says Rowley's selection of PNM Balisade Jews. The PNM had appointed speakers before. Barry Sinanan is a PNM, but fair. Allow the opposition to speak. Wade Mark, who they attack, and Rowley attack Wade Mark and threatens him with a piece. You all think Rowley cannot spell? P-I-E-C-E is a disgusting reference to arms, ammunition, a gun. And Rowley is threatening Wade Mark and the opposition for bringing up points to you, the people. He's a prime minister who has overseen the most criminality in the history of Trinidad and Tobago and has the audacity and lack of knowledge and care to know that leadership in a country that has lost its way, where criminals are running into people's houses and killing 6-year-old children with bullets to their chest, that a prime minister should try to calm it down. But somehow, whenever you see UNC, whenever you see Dr. Moonilal, Rowley likes to pretend that he's some kind of gangster. He want to kick up Moonilal. He want to beat up Moonilal. Now he want to shoot up Wade Mark. How ridiculous. Don't think he cannot spell peace. You all really believe that? We've elected a miscreant, and that is a fact. So let us continue. You had Wade Mark who was speaker. Wade Mark, go back and look at all the tapes. Wade Mark used to attack the government and curtail the government. Look, I am one member of that. Comes out on the CNMG PNM board, then goes to the head chairman of the NIB on the PNM, and then writing column in the PNM Guardian right through. This is why our country is in a mess, because we cannot be fair. The intent is not there to do your job impartially without fear or favor. When you see Keith Rowley came in, let's see if it's criminal intent. There was a president they called Carmona. No UNC, no political affiliation, a judge. He removed him and put Paula May Weeks, who we thought was independent. She deserved the office, brilliant, intelligent lady. But then this lady caused the Police Service Commission to collapse, allowed Rowley to thwart a merit list and breach the Constitution Section 123(4). The Commissioner of Police, the Police Service Commission, is supposed to be independent. The intention of this document was to have it. What has Rowley done? He caused the whole thing to collapse. First of all, he appointed Bliss Prasad, Dr. Moonilal. If you'll go back and check the records in the parliament, he made objection to Bliss Prasad simultaneously being on a CDA PNM appointed board, taking instruction from a PNM minister, and also being chairperson of an independent police service commission. Had they taken note and had the media and the country and all civic groups and all civic-minded people joined Dr. Moonilal and the UNC in that protest, the Police Service Commission would not have collapsed. We would not have been without a substantive commissioner of police for so long, and we may not have been up at 614 murders in 1 year. But we didn't listen. So Rowley had that influence there. He planted it there, and then he utilized it on August 11, 2021, when he went to the president's heirs and shoo-shooed without evidence, without documentation, and caused her to misbehave in public office. What about cabinet recusals and yes men? In 4 years, the PNM had 510 cabinet recusals. What does that mean? That decisions being made at the highest office, the decision makers, the procurers, those who decide who gets the resources, that the cabinet people had to excuse themselves because they were benefiting, their family was benefiting, their wife was benefiting, their friends were benefiting 510 times. 2 ministers, one who is now the chairman of the PNM, he had to Ricky and his friend, who is wear tighter pants than him, had to recuse themselves from cabinet 4 years, 100 times. 100 times. Is that what the Constitution intended? That you get into office to serve the public, to recuse and enrich yourself, and your brother company moves from 0 to $4.2 billion in work? Your father gets in charge of all the investment coming into Trinidad and Tobago when the Economic Development Board collapses under Dr. Terence Farrell, and Rowley replaces it with his good Gary Sobers, Office of the Prime Minister, Super Minister, a man who lied to the families of the pariah divers to tell them that everybody was working to save them when not a man moved, and people were left suffocating for 39 hours in a pipe with oil and water. Let's see if Rowley has righteous intent or criminal intent. Another check and balance in this constitution is the cabinet itself, Dr. Moonilal. The cabinet process involves discussion and discourse. A cabinet note is not just approved just because somebody bring it. All ministers get a package 2 days before. They read through the notes. They come to the cabinet. They ask questions. They vet it. If there are any money issues, Kamla Prasad-Bissessar will say, take that to F&GP, where the Minister of Finance will chair that. And you will go through and check and make sure everything is above board. And when all ministers are happy, it comes back on a blue note to the cabinet. That's how Kamla Prasad-Bissessar had her cabinet. Sometimes cabinet meetings would take 12 hours, and I would wonder, boy, I want to go fishing. Will this lady ever stop this work? Asked Dr. Moonilal. Rowley's cabinet meetings take an hour because not a man, woman, or minister back. They bring note, Rowley bring note, Stuart Young bring note, whoever call member bring note, that approved. And then Rowley also puts his super minister Gary Sobers sometimes to chair the F&GP when it had critical money to spend, with Noel Garcia being in charge. Does that sound like righteous intent or criminal intent? You tell me. Interlocking directorships we talked about. Noel Garcia, Reddy Ingrid Lashley, Newman George, all Rowley's close confidants and neighbors, Eustace Nancy, the central bank governor, the very said acting president who Rowley want to nominate to put a PNM flag on Balize House, approved, rubber stamp, the removal of Jawala Rambaran because the PNM wanted him out. To do what? To replace him with whom? Rowley's neighbor, Alvin Hilaire, who live right next to Rowley in Inez Gate in Tobago. Does that sound like independence, checks and balances, making sure things go right? Or does that sound like a mafioso, like a club, like partners, like friends? Like, which one is easier to steal? Kamla, with different people on different boards, with 33 ministers, with all independent thinkers, coming to with F&GP chair, moving correct. Which one? So when Rowley comes to call people corrupt, tell Rowley, wait, Rowley, wait. Wait, Rowley. The EBC, is Rowley righteous intent or criminal intent? If you have righteous intent, Dr. Moonilal, if you're going to serve the people, give them sports, culture, opportunities, make sure their schools are up and running, make sure the school down, is it Canai Trace? Ramai Trace. That make sure that those children have that school, and also in the Martin has school, and all over have school opportunities, equipment, talent identification. If you're going to do that, the people going to love you. Do you need to cheat? Do you need to control the referee? In this case, in election, who's the referee? The EBC. But what did Rowley do? Rowley put a PNM, former PNM minister, his niece, as the head of the EBC, and all of you stayed quiet. Is that what the Constitution intended? What about if Kamla had put Anil niece at the head of the EBC? Oh, you jump back there. You jump back quick. You say, what? Kamla mad. Kamla go win. Oh, but Rowley could put Maxi Coffee niece as the head of the EBC, and you take it and you say that's okay. Do you know that for Narcisscope is the schoolmate and best friend of the sitting Minister of Education now, Gadsby Dolly. Do you think that she likes her friend? Do you think she's close to a friend? Do you think they share birthdays and lines together? Do you think she likes Gadsby Dolly more than she likes Moonilal? If your answer is yes, then she does not qualify to be the head or to be in charge or the referee of an elections at EBC. So, is that righteous intent or is that criminal intent? You tell me, right? What about the revenue authority that the PNM has come? The PNM now come, they on top of you having no money, no jobs and nothing, suffering, pain, all kind of thing when your tire bust and your rim bust, not getting water, going to pay more for TNTech. They come to the revenue authority for the PNM minister to appoint a PNM board, to appoint a PNM general manager, to appoint PNM to go in your taxes now. Does that sound like an independent BIR, an independent assessment for all the nation, regardless of who you support politically? Does that sound like righteous intent or criminal intent? They even infiltrated the law association, where 400 lawyers could say that a lawyer who's a senior counsel who lie and say he's a junior counsel and was a note taker, but he really made submissions in a case, a man who signed that knowing a lie. You had lawyers 400 saying that's okay. Does that sound correct or is something awry in our country? What about the business chambers? The business chambers all of a sudden, murder, crime going on. They come to say, well, the opposition must help. You know, in this constitution, the opposition has no authority to take a decision on anything. Look, we cannot even stop Rowley if we want in the parliament on the 20th from putting Kangaloo there. If Rowley want Kangaloo, he getting Kangaloo. And he wanted Kangaloo before, he got Kangaloo. Now he want Kangaloo again, he will get Kangaloo. But the business chambers, rather than telling Keith Christopher Rowley, you have been there 7 years. Crime has increased exponentially every year you were there. Your previous minister, Stuart Smallpen-Young, broke records with 539 murders. Your now Fitzgerald Ethelbert Sleepy Narcolepsy Hines is the worst in history. Take some responsibility. If you cannot do the job, resign, call an election and let some competent people take over. Shouldn't that be the position? Isn't that an independent position? Because if you're in charge, you're in charge. But the PNM is now creating the new concept globally that you're in charge, but you're not really in charge. So Newman George in charge of Paria, but when Paria leave 4 men to dead 39 hours and no decision, analysis paralysis and no rescue, Rowley says it's not Newman's fault. Let Newman go and hit golf ball. So they're creating a system where the hierarchy is irrelevant. So you don't need CEO and thing, you don't need chairman of the board because there's no responsibility for anyone anywhere. What about the mass media? My bosses always say, Anil, don't attack the mass media, but I'm not attacking the mass media. But we need the mass media to be fair. When I could read an Express editorial that says that Christine Kangaloo is a safe choice and she was a fantastic creative minister, where, when, how? Give me the list of things she do. No, I want to see. And to say that she had create enemies. What is that? How you know she have enemies or how is that a benchmark? You're concocting things to say, let Rowley breach the Constitution. Now, is that a mass media that's beholden to a tyrant? Is that righteous intent or criminal intent? Was this constitution designed to promote criminal intent or righteous intent? The Media Association also, Judiciary now, and all of this. So clearly, I have made my point. I have taken long, Dr. Rowley. Dr. Rowley, Dr. Moonilal. I have taken long to deal with Dr. Rowley, Dr. Moonilal. But it is clear, Dr. Moonilal, that I have made my case that clearly Keith Christopher Rowley does not have righteous intent in his decision, and in this decision to hoist a Balize member on top of President's house and on top of the population. He has criminal intent. Rowley also, let's go into another point. Keith Christopher Rowley as Prime Minister only should be under investigation or is under investigation at this current time. I don't know what the police doing, right? But he should be and is, because David Nackett made some reports and David Nackett gave witness statements and certain issues and so on. for the following. The fake oil matter. His friend, he was the head of the National Security Council, the head of the Petrotrin, head, the person who appointed the then minister, Oliveri. When oil went missing, he then changed and shut down the whole of Petrotrin. And now his friend comes out with 118 million plus a 10-year contract totaling 1 billion in revenue and happiness. Rowley should be under investigation for those decisions. And in fact, Gary Griffith, former commissioner of police, said that Rowley was under investigation. Rowley's government was. And that they required some expert funding, some funding for experts to do an audit or to check and verify the amount of oil that went out and the possibilities and so on. But the government did not give then commissioner the money to continue that investigation. What about that investigation? Keith Rowley as prime minister should be under investigation, and we have heard that he is under investigation for the collapse of the Police Service Commission and the merit list. He should be under investigation by the Integrity Commission and the police for not filling out his Form B, for filling out his Form A incorrectly and signing it with false information, stating that the Inez Gate property was valued at 1.68. It was not. He wrote that it was valued at 1.2 million, but he paid 33,600 in stamp duty, which gives a value of 1.68. So therefore, putting on a form, an integrity form, and signing it a wrong value is a crime. And Rowley should be investigated. He also did not declare the 468,000 benefit that he got from a contractor. That is illegal and he should be investigated. He also did not alert the Integrity Commission that he negotiated a house in Inez Gate for his daughter also, who got a discount of some 500,000, and that had to be declared, and that requires an investigation by the Integrity Commission and the police. So Rowley should be under investigation there. He should also be under investigation for the corrupt HDC contract that was signed off on and then had to be thwarted. Why? Because he was the substantive Minister of Housing, and no cabinet note can reach cabinet without the Minister of Housing signing the red file. So Rowley would have read, vetted, approved, and said Permanent Secretary approved and signed the red file before it went to cabinet. So he cannot just escape, so he should be investigated for that. He should be investigated for the Bridgman's fiasco. He called it crooked money. But the only way the crooked money got out of the treasury and comes out of the treasury every day up to now. Today, the crooked money is 22,500 US for the Kobo Star. That is still running. It has reached upwards of 185 to 200 million of crooked money. Rowley lied to the population and said it went through the normal cabinet process, and then in the parliament came back and corrected the record and said no, he gave prime ministerial approval and went back for covering approval. Therefore the corrupt money, the crooked money only was approved and came out because Rowley approved it. Police should be investigating him there. They should be investigating him for wasting police time in Emailgate when he knew that what he brought was false. And then 6 years of police time and investigation then went on. People getting arrested and charged for wasting police time for lying about where they was, whether they gamble or the boss money or not. Also, land date is not over. The police could have reopened the investigation. Rowley should be investigated still about land date. There was enough information there. And Rowley could also be investigated as a teacher way back, because there's no statute of limitations on that, impregnating a girl of school age. So Rowley could be under investigation for all those things. But here's the problem now. Let's go to section 87.1 of this constitution. Okay? Where is section 87.1? The president, listen carefully, Trinidad and Tobago, because Keith Christopher Rowley wants to put a PNM Balize card wearing former PNM minister, former PNM a cabinet member, sitting PNM senator, sitting PNM Senate president, sitting PNM preacher of the gospel of the PNM in president's house. Let's read section 87.1. Now remember, I just went through a whole list of investigations that Rowley is either under by the police or should be under, right? The president may grant any person a pardon, either free or subject to lawful conditions, respecting any offenses that he may have committed. The power of the president under this subsection may be exercised by him either before or after the person is charged with any offense and before he is convicted thereof. So if any one of these investigations, the police, let us pretend for a moment that in our society that Rowley has warped, that he has oppressed, that he has controlled. Let us pretend for a moment that there are a police officer or group of police officers who are doing their job and swearing to their oath and doing any one of these investigations, and they follow through. And they go by the DPP and the DPP independent office and they see the evidence and they advise that charges must be laid and proffered on Keith Christopher Rowley. And they somehow go and they charge Keith Christopher Rowley. And whether they charge him and he going in court in preliminary or he in there, he have kangaroo at President's house who can grant any person a pardon, either free or subject to lawful conditions, respecting any offenses that he may have committed. You all still think, really, as citizens of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that you are going to allow a man who is under at least 8 investigations of Police Integrity Commission, Anti-Corruption Bureau Special Branch, and so on, the authority to appoint his sister, his party, his gospel leader, his body, his person who takes instruction to fire Jawala and so on, to give that person the power to pardon him if charges ever laid? Thing get serious now, eh? Thing getting serious. So Rowley want to quote the Constitution to attack Wade Mark the other day. Well, let me quote some Constitution. Dr. Moonilal, bear with me a little bit, right? Let us quote, because Rowley quote all kind of thing. Let's quote section 123(4) of the Constitution, 3 and 4. 3. The Police Service Commission shall submit to the President a list of names of the persons nominated for the appointment of offices of Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner of Police. And section 123(4). The President shall issue a notification in respect of each person nominated under section 3, and the notification shall be subject to affirmative resolution of House of... You didn't know that one, Keith Rowley? When you went to President's house and caused her to breach this Constitution here, Trinidad and Tobago, criminal proceedings, DPP. So what was your Attorney General Keith Christopher Rowley doing, interfering with a witness in a criminal matter? He breached this Constitution. Now you quoting from the Constitution, you only quote what piece you like. Okay, let's quote some more. We're talking about Christine Kangaloo, and the Express says that she did well in the Senate. She did well if it was a PNM. Because no UNC, no 309,000 people did not find she does well. Because she is really overdoes it, and you all go and look at it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I mean, I suffer the most, but me and mine, Douglar could handle that, right? But in democracy, not everybody back broad like the Douglar. You need fairness, you need equity. Not everybody could get interrupted 21 times in 30 minutes and keep flowing, eh, Moonilal? That, you know, both of we could do that. We handle, they have certain skills. But that is not correct. Not because we must not use our brilliance to get our point across. Our point must be heard because we are there to espouse the views of the 309,000 citizens who voted for Kamala Persad-Bissess and the UNC. Let us read section 55.1, since the Express says that Kangaloo do good as a president of the Senate. Subject to the provisions of this Constitution and to the rules and standing orders regulating the procedure of the Senate and the House of Representatives, there shall be freedom of speech in the Senate and House of Representatives. Has Kangaloo given freedom of speech? She don't care about that. She said, even if I can't read it, you can't read it. You just have to listen to me because I tell you tone it down. No, the Constitution says you govern by rules, by laws, by standing orders. Christine Kangaloo, one day I debated an immigration bill and she tell me, go and check it, don't take my word for it. Just because the bill is an immigration bill don't mean you could debate everything on immigration. I kid you not. That's Rowley's selection to put a Balize flag on top of President's house. Since we quoting, let us quote the preamble of the Constitution. Because the Constitution is not just the words in here. It's the spirit, it's the context, it's the intent. And remember, we're talking about, does Rowley have righteous intent or does Rowley have criminal intent? Let us read this. Freedom of speech. In the preamble of the Constitution, that the people have asserted their belief in a democratic society in which all persons may, to the extent of their capacity, play some part in the institutions of the national life and thus develop and maintain due respect for lawfully constituted authority. The people desire that their Constitution should enshrine the above rights. Do you believe that this attack on President's house by a political party allows people to assert their freedoms and their liberties? We also had the part about moral and spiritual values. A.N.R. Robinson and Dr. Moonilal, who deal with that, handed over government from Bastio Pandey to the PNM based on the preamble of this Constitution. The preamble speaks of the spirit of the Constitution, moral and spiritual values. Well, let me ask the citizens of this country, if we are using the A.N.R. Robinson benchmark that handed over an incumbent government to PNM about moral and spiritual values, do you believe that Keith Christopher Rowley has the moral and spiritual wherewithal to lead this Sorry boy. I'm asking all of you who are more spiritual than me, talk to me. Talk to your brother. Tell me if it's okay. So it's moral and spiritual values for the whole country. But Rowley could do what you want. Then they have the gospel of the PNM. Now, in summary, let me wrap up. I went a little long. Dr. Moonilal, sorry boy, but this is a very serious thing. Ellis Clark, Eric Williams, etc. said, this is what we were trained to follow, this. Because when Ashwath Sinanan and some of the opposition back in 1961 January during the consultation were fighting for proportional representation and saying that this is not good, Ellis Clark and Dr. Williams and the PNM said this is what we are trained to follow, right? If we are trained to follow this, then this 1976 version, this replaces the monarchy. So the president replaces the monarchy. The monarchy does not get involved in UK politics in the Westminster system in taking and appointing people and getting involved in aspects of daily life that could impact propriety, corporate governance, tendering, and the criminal justice system. So how come our president is now, who has been given that authority, is now going to be selected by a sitting PNM prime minister to be a PNM president? We follow the Westminster. The spirit of the Constitution is, for want of a better term, a local monarch, no political interference, independent. We must have checks and balances. The separation of powers is intended throughout the Constitution. This is the spirit of the Constitution and has been bolstered by convention. The term, now I'm going to get a little technical for you. I went down to explain to my people. Now let me talk real constitution. All your professors, all of your civic-minded people, public servants, all of you, the intelligentsia need to stand up now and not allow Rowley to go against this, the spirit of this document. The term trias politica, or separation of power. You like that one, eh?
I like that too.
The term trias politica, or separation of powers, was coined by Charles Louis Secondant, Baron de la Brede et Monsiquin, French, I prefer Spanish, but French is there. An 18th century French social and political philosopher. His publication, Spirit of the Laws, inspired the Declaration of Rights of Man. Under this model, the political authority of the state is divided into legislative, executive, and judicial powers. He asserted that the most effectively promote liberty, these three powers must be separate and acting independently. Let me repeat, in order to most effectively promote liberty, these three powers must be separate and acting independently. Our constitution is based on these principles. Therefore, the question of for the citizens, you out there to ask yourself is, does the appointment of a PNM member, a PNM active politician, a PNM believer, by a PNM prime minister, a PNM cabinet, a PNM majority in the House, a PNM majority in the Senate, a PNM majority in the Electoral College, to the independent office of the president, who then appoints independent members of the EBC, Police Service Commission, other commissions, the independent Senate bench, the independent central bank governor. Does this appointment of Balize to Balize by Balize for Balize, does this promote liberty? Does it promote freedom? Does it promote independence and the separation of powers? That is the question. And if the answer is no, then wait, Kangaloo, wait. If your answer is no, then this proposed appointment is unconstitutional, immoral, unethical, anti-democratic, oppressive, tyrannical, and non-spiritual. This proposal of the PNM by the PNM for the PNM must be resoundingly rejected by the free citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me just remind you of some of the appointments the president would make. Chief Justice, Ombudsman, members of the EBC, the Auditor General, to check how the PNM spending money with the interlocking directorships with Noel Garcia spending all the money. The Auditor General. Members of the Judicial and Legal Service Commission who appoint judges in the judiciary. The only place we seem to get a fair shake, it might take long, is the judiciary. But they too have had some scathing judgments recently. Teaching Service Commission, Public Service Commission, the Environmental Commission, the Equal Opportunities Commission, the Law Reform Commission, the Public Service Appeal Board, and the Integrity Commission. Didn't I just tell you that Rowley should be under investigation by the Integrity Commission and he going to put Kangaloo there to appoint members of the board? Remember, they had a member who was at the Integrity Commission who say, even though it wasn't emails, it couldn't be emails, there weren't enough characters for it to go up in the cloud. Forget that it was always concocted. You had to investigate the contents of something that did not exist. Remember, there had a man on the Integrity Commission who said that? Now we in charge of some commission to look for Moonilal and thing, and Jack Warner and thing with OAS on the highway. And they were even thinking about putting him as president too. Does that sound like righteous intent or criminal intent? All of these institutions, once Kangaloo goes forward, will now be indelibly stained with the stench of political bias and tyranny by the minority government of the PNM. Finally, I remind you of the sacrosanct policy and philosophy of separation of powers. I finish off now, and I humbly apologize for taking long. Normally I don't take long, but this is very critical. And Rowley thinks that he's going to railroad us on the 20th, but you, the people, have to stand up and reject Rowley. In the words of Black Stalin, the great legend, a man whose lyrics will live on forever, a man of the people, for the people, by the people, a brilliant, intelligent soldier who now limes with Sprangalang in heaven. Oil money come, and oil money go, and poor people remain on the pavement and the ghetto. Now when Mr. Divider start to divide the bread equally, yes, I go in and finish the whole damn calypso about Kangaloo. But once my people keep fighting for an equal share of the cake, wait, Kangaloo, wait, Kangaloo, wait. I now hand over to my brother, Dr. Rudal Moonilal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anil Roberts, for that really wide-ranging presentation on the critical issues, as I said earlier, affecting our country and touching on several matters that occupy attention today. And the good news for me, Anil, is that I just scratch off a few points I had on my own notes because I think it was really ably dealt with by yourself, particularly some of the issues related to the president. So I will focus on a few issues not raised, of course, and matters in dealing with crime and insecurity. I also didn't want to interrupt you because I thought at the Senate, in that kangaroo court, you had enough interruptions. 21 in 30 minutes. So I thought in principle I should not interrupt you, not even once. I appreciate that. So we are very, very eager to hear you. And as I said, it left many questions and important questions hanging for members of the press and members of the national community. This morning, I wanted to begin by saying that in our presentations and in dealing with this issue of the presidency, we have and we hold no animosity or malice or ill will towards anyone, whether it is Mrs. Christine Kangaloo, Mr. Israel Khan, or whoever it is. We hold no animosity, no ill will. We are concerned with the office. We are concerned with the integrity of an office. We are concerned with our systems of governance, and we are concerned with delivering goods and service to the people in a manner that is fair, that is lawful, that is equitable. That is our overriding concern, so that we have no animosity at all to anyone. I want to begin by saying that, as Anil said, there are people in the national community who ask us, why are we doing this? Why are we expending so much oxygen on this matter of the presidency? What is that about? I mean, the president over the years, some people have the image that they're there, they put on suit, business clothes, business dress, or jacket and tie, drive around the place with a fleet of security. The image of the president, of course, is 20, heavily tinted, dark black vehicles, Prado and so on the road, pulling citizens aside so that they may pass and so on. What is this about? Why are we doing this? Why are we engaged in a discussion like this? And I wanted to address that to begin with. While it is true, and many have said that we are in need of constitutional reform, we must be rethinking the role of the president and so on. Some people even go so far to say that, look, the president, office is a symbolic office. It is ceremonial, and therefore it is not effective. It doesn't do anything to change the price of tomatoes in the market. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything to fix pothole and so on. And to a certain extent, it is right, but it is also wrong. In that, yes, this country today, people are caught up with the bread and butter issues. This is a country where we are braving floodwaters one day, ducking from bullets the next day, dodging from pothole the next day. It is a country that has reached a stage, members of the press, where people are stealing cheese from the supermarket. Eventually, we will have to, cheese in a supermarket will be like diamond and gold in a jewelry shop. You lock it, lock and key. And when you want to see a watch, they pull, they open. Eventually, the supermarket will have to hide cheese. And when you ask for 3 ounces, they'll bring it out. People are stealing that. In some communities, people are stealing dog to sell. If people have pedigree dog and you let your little poodle come out and think they snatch that to go and sell on a black market. That is where this country has reached. Now, that is really related to the issue of election of a president. And I will show people how. And I will not go in detail because I think Senator Roberts did that in good stead. The president in our system of government is the centerpiece to appoint several independent commissions and bodies that are critical to the delivery of goods and services. And I will break it up in a way that people can try to understand what we are saying. In our constitution, the president appoints an election and boundaries commission. That is the group that is responsible for the conduct of fair and free elections. In Guyana, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, just a year or so ago, there were 2 famous men, one named Mingo and the next one named Clement or something. And these are men who the United States that did the overseeing of that election, or so what they call observers, said it was the most vivid and open attempt to steal an election they have ever seen. That is in a report on Guyana. The EBC in Trinidad supervises the election. The president appoints members, commissioners, and so on there. And I have the list. I will just go through quickly to show you, brothers and sisters of the press. In our system of government, the Police Service Commission is appointed by the president in consultation with a prime minister and leader of the opposition. In our system, you know what that means? The president writes a letter to the prime minister and the leader of the opposition and say, I am interested in appointing John Smith. What say you? You reply, nothing is wrong with John Smith. John Smith appointed. If you reply and say, look, we have a fundamental problem. John Smith has a record of larceny, of theft, of domestic abuse and so on. Don't put John Smith. The president just looks at it and say, we're sorry about you. I think we'll go with John Smith. That is the system. Election and boundaries. Police Service Commission to appoint a commissioner of police. Public Service Commission. Teaching Service Commission. Integrity Commission. That is in the hands of a president. So when the president is a creature of the prime minister, those of us who have been around the compound in a long time remember well, Keith Rowley campaigning in Pointe-à-Pitre South in 2007 or thereabout, and I'll come to her record in a little while. He said on the platform, and I dare Keith Rowley to tell me no. You know what he said? He said, I was proud to stand on a PNM platform in support of Christine Kangaloo because I recruited her to politics. Christine Kangaloo is a recruit of Keith Rowley. He said it in the platform. We could find his speech, newspaper. We could find that. That is not a problem. We could find that. So a man who said proudly he don't encourage people or recruit plenty people to politics. He was proud that his recruit, today, his recruit wants to go to the president's house. And that is a matter of record. To appoint all of these judicial, we're coming now to something called the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. Do you know a Chief Justice is appointed by the President? Chief Justice. Judges in the court there, judges are appointed by something called the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. Section 110 of the Constitution. Judicial, that is made up of the Chief Justice, Chairman of the Public Service Commission, who is appointed by the President, such other members appointed by the President. So the President appoints persons to the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. One person who holds high office as a judge in the Commonwealth, two from among people with legal qualifications, at least one who have not been in active practice, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to read that. The point is, judges are appointed by the Judicial and Legal Service Commission that is effectively appointed by a president. They say what they want about consultation. Consultation is really the prime minister, leader of the opposition. It will be like pen pals, writing letter to each other. If I hear from you, good. If I don't hear from you, okay. We're going. And the president is having this power to appoint judges. Our system of government, as Anil Roberts recited, Parlez-vous français, told us in French, that it is built on three pillars of government: the president, the legislature, and the judiciary. It was never the intention of the drafters of the Constitution to fuse the president and the legislature in one. That is done in the United States. It is done incidentally in Guyana, in our backyard, where the president and the prime minister is fused into one. The executive authority, so to speak, is into one. In Trinidad and Tobago, it is not meant like that. It is meant that we have the president as independent, the legislature headed by an executive that is independent of the president, and the judiciary that is the guardian of the Constitution and the law, independent. Now we are creating a system where the president is the creature of the executive and the head of government. That is his recruit, which he was proud to campaign for. That is where we are going, and this is why you have a son. Let me tell the population, you have a son, the son will graduate, get a little degree, subjects and so on, want to become a teacher. You have to go through Teaching Service Commission, appointed now by PNM. You have someone in the civil service working, they need to get promotion above what is called a certain range and so on. Public Service Commission comes in. Who is the Public Service Commission? Appointed by a president that is the recruit of the prime minister. So how will your mommy, your daddy, your big brother or sister be appointed in the civil service and the public service when the commission is made up of men and women appointed by the recruit of the prime minister? That speaks to fairness. It speaks to issues of discrimination, inequality, victimization. When you have this PNMization of the service commissions because of the identity of that person who occupies the president's office, Judicial and Legal Service Commission. Rowley, in his statement a few days ago, made, what is, I have to choose my language here carefully, let me get a good word to describe his statement here. Somebody wrote it. In a bizarre statement, Keith Rowley, in a callous manner, use words like that, not the word I had in mind, in a callous manner, flippant, said, well, Ms. Kangaloo is qualified. I want to tell Keith Rowley, in case you don't know, 800,000 citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are qualified to be president. The only thing disqualify you is if you are under 35 years of age as a citizen and you would not have been residing in Trinidad and Tobago, ordinarily resident, for 10 years. We have checked the figures of the CSO. 800,000 persons are qualified to be president, including, I suspect, all of us in this room. So, well, Senator Leida might be under 35, the youthful Senator Leida. But 800,000 persons are qualified to be president of Trinidad and Tobago. So the issue is not the constitutionality. I think you have to be alive. You could probably be in jail, but you have to be alive. Because the last time they voted for a president, not the last time, Mr. Robinson time, I'm coming to that, the speaker made it his business to say that he is aware and he is convinced and he has knowledge that both candidates were alive. You cannot be dead. So the issue, Dr. Rowley, is not what in the Constitution at Section 87 or 24 or whatever, and we have it in front of us here. Persons qualified to be nominated for president, Section 23 and 24 deals with that. 35 years and upwards, who are nomination resident in Trinidad and so on. That is not the issue. The issue is whether someone who has been a politician this way in the cabinet, a member of the PNM, exalt the population to join the gospel of the PNM, that person is rank unsuitable. That is the issue. It is not whether the person is qualified according to the law or the Constitution. 800,000 of us qualified. Some much more qualified. In fact, let me get to the point. Mrs. Kangaloo served with me in the parliament between the period 2007 2010. In fact, her parliamentary service as a member is really 3 years. She replaced someone who is a judge now who served for 7 years. So that person is probably more qualified in terms of parliament. Rowley speaks as if it's this great parliamentary experience. It's 3 years. It's 3 years. Then Dr. Rowley makes a point which I want to pick up now, and persons have asked me to address this. Comparing Miss Kangaloo with A.N.R. Robinson, Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson. One person told me Robinson was responsible for the International Criminal Court. The next one is responsible for a kangaroo court in the Senate. One has been applauded by the global community, one applauded by the PNM. That is the difference. Mr. Robinson, I want to tell Rowley, not Ms. Kangaloo, I want to tell Rowley that before Ms. Kangaloo was born, Mr. Robinson was a member of the federal parliament. When she was born and put on her first pampers, Mr. Robinson was the Minister of Finance of Trinidad and Tobago. He has awards and rewards and so on from about 20 countries of the world for his work, for his international service. When he was nominated in 1997, he had 40 years experience in parliament, cabinet, THA, etc., etc. And so I don't think one should be easily comparing Mr. Robinson with Ms. Kangaloo as a president in terms of where they have reached in service and international service as well. Mr. Robinson was an author, a writer, a scholar, had addressed universities throughout Trinidad and Tobago and the world, and had reached a certain stature as an international civil servant, as a lawyer as well in his own right, as an attorney at law, and someone who was the architect of legislation in this country to promote freedom, to promote liberty. He was renowned across the world. And I want to make the point as well, when many persons, including myself, would have had disputes with Mr. Robinson over policy, over approach, and so on. I'll tell you something. He was probably one of the most affable men you could have ever met. He was always affable and humorous, and he had this disarming charm, so to speak, that some of the old politicians had. So Mr. Robinson really ought not to be compared that way to someone who spent 3 years in cabinet and 3 years elected as a member of parliament. I leave that there. When the People's Partnership had to appoint a president under Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa's leadership, we did not take someone who was in the political gael, a UNC politician, someone who has been in the politics and active in the politics. We appointed a former judge of the International Criminal Court, High Court Justice in Trinidad and Tobago, in the person of Mr. Retired Justice Anthony Carmona, His Excellency. That was the caliber. Now, I come to the point because I'm leading to our next point here. The Guardian editorial of yesterday want to portray, to truth be told, however, neither the UNC or the PNM has the moral authority to use candidates' affiliations to parties as a hindrance to their presidential candidacy. This, again, I use a gentle word. This is inaccurate and wrong. It is inaccurate and wrong. When Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa led a government to appoint a president, it was a judge from the International Criminal Court, a justice, High Court Justice from Trinidad and Tobago, a prominent man in culture as well, who we appointed. Now, why did Rowley do this? 5 years ago, Rowley had the opportunity to appoint a president. He came with a candidate who was a former state prosecutor, justice at the Court of Appeal, and so on. The UNC agreed. In fact, we co-signed that document to have Mrs. Excellency Paula May Weeks appointed. Notwithstanding her tenure, we agreed with that. It appeared to be a candidate of some stature and so on, independent from the political gael and so on. Why did Rowley deviate? That is the question on everyone's mind. Why 5 years later he deviates from his own policy, his own approach to appointing a president? I want to put it on the table immediately. It is not that persons have ditched him or he invited high office holders or men and women of international stature and so on, and they said no. No, we don't think so. I know of no one, and I challenge you, I know of no one who will reject an offer to become head of state, the highest office holder in the land, for 5 years to start with, where that position itself has tenure. That has tenure. And you serve the country in this capacity. I know of no one. Maybe there are one or two because of health, maybe. I know of no one. So why did he choose to go down this route? And I'm telling you, look at the appointments. EBC, Integrity Commission, when they have matters at the Integrity Commission. Look at our appointments to the Police Service Commission, when they are hell-bent on keeping Gary Griffith out. Look at matters involving the Public Service Commission, where they have expressed a lack of confidence in permanent secretaries. And most importantly of all, brothers and sisters of the press, I bring this to you now. Look at this power of the president for the purposes of giving pardons. Giving a pardon. Look at this. Look at this power to give a pardon. It is section 87, 88, I believe, of the Constitution. My junior counsel will give me that book immediately to point out. Thank you, counsel. 87, the president may grant to any person a pardon, free, subject to lawful conditions, etc., etc. Again, no need to read it out and so on. The president gives this pardon on the advice of who? Minister National Security Fitzgerald Hines, Attorney General Reginald Amor, well, DPP, although the Judicial and Legal Service appoint that too, and other members appointed by the president. So, anyone is concerned that there's a person named Vincent Nelson with a civil matter in the court now against the government, who has said that he's prepared to give testimony against political opponents of the PNM, namely Ramdeen and Ram Logan, if they pay him and grant him a presidential pardon. We are asking the question today. Is it that the first order of business of President Christine Kangaloo, assuming she is the president of this country, is it her first order of business to grant a presidential pardon to Vincent Nelson, clearing the way for the withdrawal of that civil action against the government so they may recharge Anand Ramlogan and Gerard Rambi? That is the question that is burning, occupying the attention of those in the law enforcement area and those in the judiciary with knowledge of those matters. Is it Christine Kangalu's job to grant a presidential pardon to Vincent Nelson? Because that is what we are talking about, pardon for Nelson. And you will get it with your president in office. And that will clear the way to go back and charge those gentlemen again. That is where the society is reaching with this type of appointment. Because there is a track record. Look at here. Ms. Kangalu acted as president. They used her position when her warm body was in the president's house to fire Douglar Rambaran, a governor of the central bank. This was not the fellow who is the car park attendant, you know. That's not the fellow helping you to park your car in the car park, you know. The governor of the central bank. High Court Judgment, Civil Matter 2019-00050. Douglar Rambaran attorney versus the Attorney General. In fact, the lawyer again is Anand Ramlogan. And here's the order. It says at page 72. The court declares that the termination by the president of the claimant, meaning Mr. Rambaran, appointment as governor in the purported exercise of the power and so, has contravened his right to protection of the law as guaranteed by the Constitution. The court said that the president, brothers and sisters, the president's decision to terminate the appointment of Douglar Rambaran, governor of the central bank, was a breach of his right to the protection of the law. The termination of the aforesaid of the claimant's appointment as governor contravened the claimant's right to a fair hearing in accordance with all the rights under the Constitution and so on. With all the rights under the Constitution and so on. It was the president. I want to repeat that, you know, in case. Let me tell you something. You see, just in case you get up to go and do something and come back and hear me, the termination by the president of the appointment of the governor of the central bank contravened the claimant's right to the protection of the law. Rowley is now arguing that the president acted under the advice of the cabinet. That may be so. It may be so. But the president is a human being with a brain. When Robinson did not want to appoint Pandey senator, including me, you know, it took a lifetime before Mr. Robinson appointed us on Valentine's Day in 2001. Mr. Robinson waited. He said, wait, I have some differences with this, and I have a little problem with that, you know. I don't think it's fair. Whatever his thinking, we may agree or disagree. He mashed the brakes. Miss Kangalu did not mash the brakes when they come to her and tell her fire Douglar Rambaran. She moved with speed and haste and urgency, and a court ruled that the president's termination by the president of Mr. Rambaran as governor of the central bank contravened his right to protection of the law. This alone should disqualify Ms. Kangalu from being president of this country. This alone. So if Rowley could have smothered Paula May Weeks' Excellency, who is his recruit? This is his recruit. So this, brothers and sisters, is a grave matter. I will move on. Dr. Rowley on Monday as well made a song and dance out of something that's very interesting. Very interesting. He said in 1997, when the UNC government, and I'm reminded by counsel here that it is the norm that when a president is out of the country, you wait until the return of the president to undertake the substantive business of the office of the president. An acting president ought not to be put in that position, but they put her for that. In 1997, Keith Rowley tells us, he said, when the UNC brought, and I will tell you in my own words without reading a set of things, brought a nominee, A.N.R. Robinson, as president, February 1997, I take you back. Rowley said he broke ranks. He is one who broke ranks. I have the Hansard account here in my hand. Do you know one of the nominees of Justice Anthony Amos Lucky to be the PNM nominee as president? One of the nominees was Camille Robinson Regis, Aruka South. So I am asking Ms. Robinson Regis today, did you also break ranks and vote for Robinson? Or did you vote for Mr. Lucky, who you nominated? And who are the four others? The PNM had 17 seats in the House and 6 senators, I believe it's 23. Mr. Lucky, poor fella, he got 18 votes. So he did not get the 23 that the PNM itself should have given him. Rowley came out and said he's won. Today we ask, who are the 4 others? Who are the 4 others, and does it include Ms. Robinson Regis, who also signed Mr. Lucky nomination paper? Who are the 4 others that betrayed Patrick Manning, that betrayed the People's National Movement because they did not remove the whip? So Mr. Rowley, Keith Rowley, declared 25 years later, a quarter century later, that he betrayed Patrick Manning. He betrayed the PNM. He voted against the nominee Anthony Lucky of the PNM when Camille Robinson Regis signed his papers. He voted against the PNM and against Patrick Manning. I call today, Mr. Brian Manning, you are voting next week Friday. What say you? What will you do? That the Prime Minister betrayed your father in the appointment of a president in 1997. Would you now go and vote for the nominee, the recruit of Dr. Keith Rowley next week Friday, the 20th? I call upon Ms. Penny Beckles. I call upon others in the parliament. What will you do on the 24th? I advise you to follow your leader. Follow your leader. He breached PNM policy, betrayed his leader in 1997, Patrick Manning. The members of the PNM in the lower house and the upper house and the independent senators, we appeal to you today. Save your democracy. You must vote against Ms. Kangaloo next week Friday in the parliament when the electoral college convenes. And we have a president, Mr. Rowley and others. Mr. Rowley admit, I betrayed Patrick Manning and the PNM. So you can come next week Friday, secret ballot, and you could vote for any candidate of your choice. And there is a superior candidate in Mr. Khan, very superior candidate. So I appeal to members on the PNM bench. I appeal to the independent senators. You are not to follow the government. Keith Rowley has given you an escape hatch. He voted against the PNM candidate in Anthony Amos Lucky. You can vote against the PNM candidate in Christine Kangaloo. Follow your leader. That is what I say to the PNM MPs. All of them, from the back bench, the front bench, the center bench. I appeal to them. All of them, whether it's Mr. Imbert, Mr. Alwari, Ms. Beckles, Mr. McClashy, if that's his correct name.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Roger Moore. We appeal
Roger Moore, the James
Monroe.
Oh, Monroe.
Mr.
Who
Monroe.
is
Somebody.
So come on,
yes.
No.
We appeal to them. We appeal to them.
I forget.
Exercise your conscience, do the right thing, and allow our democracy to survive this onslaught by Keith Rowley and others. So I just go back to that to tell you. And you know, in this speech is very important, I wanted to say as well, Ken Valley presented the argument for Mr. Anthony Lucky. Mr. Ken Valley did that. Huh? And here what Mr. Valley said, I just got one line from deceased Ken Valley. In presenting Anthony Lucky, who Keith Rowley did not vote for, Mr. Valley presented him. He said, Mr. Chairman, it is the view of the members on this side. Well, it wasn't the view of Mr. Rowley. Ken Valley is speaking. He said, it is the view of the members on this side, except Keith Rowley and 4 others, that the person holding the office of president must be an exemplar, manifesting unquestionable integrity, strength of character, intelligence, patriotism, objectivity, and non-partisanship. That is what Kenneth Valley, deceased, good friend in the old days of Keith Rowley, said. And I would like to present to this House Mr. Justice Lucky's personal educational career background and recommend him as a quintessential Caribbean man to be the president of Trinidad and Tobago. Rowley said, enough of that, I voted for Robinson. So this, his own party said, non-partisanship is very important in selecting a president. His own party, but he has never been one to be loyal to his own party and leader. We dealt with the Nelson matter, of course, the recruit of the political leader and prime minister. And another point I make, because I myself don't want to take you for too long, in doing this, Keith Rowley on Monday last, I listened to him in snippets because I can't take his whole speech in one shot that way. I have to listen in blocks. And, you know, I'll come to another point related to his speech. But he said that the country is demobilized, is not united. Citizens protecting criminals. He said that. He's not saying that the government not protecting citizens. He's saying citizens protecting criminals. But by itself, it means, therefore, he's telling the country that Trinidad and Tobago is not united. It is not mobilized. There's a sense of isolation, alienation, because if citizens are supporting and protecting criminals, the society itself is not mobilized. and united. And when he has an opportunity to show unity, cohesion, cohesiveness with the appointment of a head of state, he shows division, disunity, disharmony. The Prime Minister could have worked with the opposition leader and arrived at a consensus candidate that we can all agree on and promote, and that by itself sends a message to the national community that the government, opposition, the parliament is united. And in doing that, the criminals take a sort of temperature, a pulse from that. The criminals are not going to be reading the Constitution 87 and 88 and so on, but they get the pulse when a society is united. And that is when you deal with crime and other social evils, when you are united. What does he do? He disunites the country. Put a symbol of division in the head of state, as the head of state. And Mr. Rowley, I make a next statement now. Rowley and Amor and his government have been promoting the Caribbean Court of Justice. Do you know this appointment of Christine Kangaloo spells the death knell of the Caribbean Court of Justice? Those who are promoting the Caribbean Court of Justice just got a dagger in their backs, because citizens of Trinidad and Tobago now will hold on to the Privy Council, because with a president like this in office, assuming, and the appointment of judges and judicial officers and so on, one will have less and less faith in the judiciary. And therefore you are inclined to hold on to the Privy Council as a last bastion of hope, of decency, of integrity, of fairness, impartiality, rather than the CCJ, so that they are driving a dagger in the back of the CCJ and our indigenous jurists and so on, by putting an appointment like this that can undermine integrity in the judiciary itself at all levels. And that is a matter that, I'm prepared to even speak in more detail on that matter, because I feel strongly that if you undermine the judiciary, you are putting the CCJ back by 20, 30 years, because people now will have more faith in the Privy Council rather than in the CCJ, where judges are appointed by Caribbean leaders and Caribbean jurists and so on, and presidents and so on. And the local court system here may be infused and polluted by PNM appointments given this type of president. So that is where we are in terms of my business. Again, there's not much I would want to add, but in closing, I just want to make two quick remarks on the crime situation. I raised this matter 2 weeks ago or so in a press conference with Senator Mark, who joined me then, and I made the point that the mobile scanners purchased for about $50 million TT by the police service is not working. Today I can tell you and confirm that those mobile scanners meant to park along the highway hotspots to scan cars and vehicles for drugs, for guns, and even human trafficking and so on. Not only are they working, I think 2 of those trucks require tires, the tires flat. And we want to appeal to people who own tire shops and buy and sell tires, if they can donate tires to the TTPS to fix the 2 mobile trucks that carry $50 million worth in equipment and in technology, because the police cannot buy 2 tires for the trucks. We have a picture, I won't show it now, of the flat tire in the truck. So if Mileage Mac or somebody listening could donate tires for the scanners, Jack's Tires could donate tires to the TTPS for the mobile scanners, so that it may work. $50 million, but out of malice, they will not use it because Gary Griffith procured it. And I made a point last time, I will end by saying that the matter involving Johnson Controls, who got a contract to supply CCTV camera in Trinidad and Tobago without what we believe to be proper process and so on, that matter is occupying the attention of the United States Securities Commission, and it is being investigated. The government has said nothing, but they have moved quietly behind closed doors to move with TSTT to see if they can patch up their differences, because that matter is in the New York, I believe is the New York office of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. And very soon they will be investigated in Trinidad and Tobago and interviewing members of the government as it relates to that tender where a United States company, quote unquote, won a bid that it was improper and we believe unlawful. So that
I have a question for you on that.
That matter will come to the fore just now. Yes.
This question, because I wasn't sure, I didn't hear it clearly. You had stated in that tender that the tender was extended arbitrarily.
Correct, you're right. September 2018, on a Friday, the tender was to close 2 o'clock. It closed. Persons put in their bid. And at 10 past 2, 11 past 2, we have the email. Ministry of National Security Center direction that the tender would be extended for 3 weeks.
Well, let me ask
when
you
it
this.
was closed.
Let me ask you this. Is Johnson, what at the time of close of tender, was Johnson or the company that you said who eventually won, had they put in the tender or did they benefit from the extension?
They benefit from the extension. They were not even known in September 2018. They came in January 2019. They came, put in a bid in a process that none of the existing tenderers knew about, and then they were declared the winner. Well, that matter, if the Trinidad and Tobago police don't want to investigate it, the United States authority, including, I believe I was told this morning, the State Department in the United States is looking at that because it involves an American company, and the Americans have something called the Foreign Corrupt Act, in which an American company commits an offense if they are engaged in corruption on foreign soil. And that is a matter that is actively being pursued. So in closing, I tell Dr. Rowley, it is never too late to pause and pull back this nomination. It is not too late to look again at the situation and review. They have the power of the government. They can do that. But it will be going down the wrong road. It will be sending a wrong message. And it will be another step to constitutional dictatorship to have any politician such as Ms. Kangaloo in the office of the president. And again, I want to close how I began. We hold no personal animosity, no ill will, no malice against Ms. Kangaloo, Mr. Khan, or anyone. We are just calling it as we see it. Myself and Mr. Roberts share a special relationship. I think we are twin public enemies number one. If you could have a twin for public enemy number one of Keith Rowley and the PNM government, we share that great, crown, that medal.
Proudly.
And proudly, we share that we are their targets that they have invested. We will talk about it another time. They have invested over $45 million to investigate myself and Anil Roberts. We are here. We are free. And when the police contact me, it is always to give a donation to the police to help them with some of their work and things. It's never on any other matter. So I thank you, and we'll take some questions now from the media and others at this time. Please.
Well, that's a question for me. You mentioned the firing of Joanna Ramran. Given that the High Court found that this termination was unlawful, do you think that Ms. Kangaloo should explain her decision to take part in that process?
Clearly, Ms. Kangaloo has a lot to explain in that matter because she undertook the function of dismissing, terminating the appointment. Whether it was on the advice of the cabinet or the Prime Minister is irrelevant at this stage. But Ms. Kangaloo is an independent person. In fact, she's an attorney at law as well, and had all this experience that Dr. Rowley talked about. He was, boasting of her experience, and when the time comes to use her experience, use her judgment, use her knowledge of public service and the law, she did not. And a court ruled that her termination was unlawful and illegal and unfair, so that she must explain herself carefully. Why did she do that in that limited time? Why did she not say, okay, when the substantive president is back, Excellency Paula May Weeks would look at it and would give would sign off if that was the case?
People may not understand that point that Dr. Moonilal is making. Having served in a cabinet, there are many times that ministers would leave and the Honorable Prime Minister will put someone to act. The principle and the convention is, for example, if I was Minister of Sport and Winston Gypsy Peters had to go to Sweden for a conference, and the Honorable Prime Minister puts me to act as Minister of Culture, I don't go in Winston Gypsy Peters' ministry and change policy and take decisions on my own. I am only there in case of emergency, in contact with the substantive minister to take a decision. So in the same vein, if Christine Kangaloo was acting president, she should have just been there to fulfill a role in case of emergency, war, pandemic, something, and just await the arrival of the substantive president. So that decision, a critical decision about removing a central bank governor that has now forced the state, you, the taxpayers, to pay millions of dollars, She should not have taken that decision. She should have watched that paper. It was not urgent. It could have waited the 2 days for the president to come back from wherever she went and let the real substantive president sign. That is very critical because it shows what will happen if, God forbid, we do not prevent this PNM Balize upon Balize across Balize.
Senator, what you mentioned, the appointments that the president makes, is it that the opposition will be scrutinizing all of our prospective President Kangalu's appointments?
The opposition will scrutinize even if we had an independent president. We, as Dr. Moonilal said, we signed off on the advice and the guidance of the caucus of the United National Congress. If you flashback now, hindsight is 2020. But if you go back 5 years, I was excited for the term of Paula May Weeks. My one law class that I had done while coaching, because I made a decision to not follow my mother, father, 2 brothers, sisters, and son into law. Right, I follow my son, but he's going to be a lawyer. I have to big up my son. My one class was constitutional law. Pass our constitution there, please, Dr. Mooney. Constitutional law taught by Paula May Weeks. You telling me a lady who knows this constitution inside out did not know section 123(4) and went to breach it? We were proud that she deserved the office. She was brilliant, intelligent, national scholarship winner. And yet, with political influence in her ears, she became the worst president in history. But she started apolitical. So what do you think is going to happen when you start off as Rowley recruit? RR.
Dr. Moonilal, you mentioned the perspective of presidential pardon that was promised to Vincent Nelson. Is it that the next president will be obligated to fulfill that promise, or would they have discretion to deny that pardon?
Well, regrettably, Ms. Kangalu has not demonstrated any of the requisite independence, judgment, and strength to resist the directions of the Prime Minister and his cabinet. The Rambaran firing is one, but I imagine that when the Prime Minister goes to her and says, look, we have to give Vincent Nelson a pardon in the circumstances, we need him, and so on, she will not hesitate but to grant that pardon. And the pardon committee and so on, as you know, they are even appointed by her indirectly. So that is something that we'll have to watch. I wanted to warn the country that the Vincent Nelson matter is the biggest scandal that have faced this government and maybe all governments since 1962, if you understand what happened there. And for that to go away, a presidential pardon was what Mr. Nelson was asking for, because that has implications for his work and his social benefits in England and so on. And I'm afraid that this president, being a recruit of the Prime Minister, would be putty in his hands.
Now, to go also on that point, I mentioned Noel Garcia. When we were discussing this, the PNM Keith Rowley has Noel Garcia in charge for the last 7 years of at least $5 to $6 billion of taxpayers' money. Let us just say that he who spends more is in greater risk of being investigated. Let us leave it as that. Now, if there are investigations, remember the history and the track record of Las Alturas of all the Ministry of Housing 2003 to 2007 under Keith Rowley and Noel Garcia, including Greenvale, where people nearly drowned when they were instructed that they were not to build houses in a floodplain agricultural area. And Keith Rowley and Al Rawi was on that board, went ahead to build Greenvale and broke the law. And Keith Rowley said, well, to build house and move fast, we had to break the law. Well, if they're breaking laws, and let's say there are investigations under the #1 man in charge of all your money because Keith Rowley feels comfortable with him there, and police do some work and some charges are proffered, that is his in-law in president's office. Noel Garcia is related to Christine Kangalu. So when you're talking pardon, is that something that you want? Is that good corporate governance? That one man in charge of the entire treasury doing what he wants? He could do what he wants, and even if you have police who do their job properly, that you have this big get out of jail free card sitting in president's house because your in-law is the president? That could never be right. No right-minded citizen could agree to that.
Yesterday, attorney for Parry and Gilbert Peterson objected to family petty divers testifying before the Commission of Inquiry. Chairman Lynch refused to uphold that. But who would have given instruction to Mr. Peterson to do that? Would it have been Parry or Minister Young?
Well, clearly the government, and it is the government, whether it's Faria or the ministry or Minister Young, the government would have instructed their lawyers to act in a particular way. And I'm clear that the government did not want the voice of the families to be heard in that matter, because the families will depict, as I think they have done, the complete lack of political involvement, the complete lack of will, the complete lack of care by members of the government. On the Sunday night, I had that traumatic experience of visiting that place, the car park at Pointe-à-Pierre. And what I was taken aback with, apart from the tears and the trauma of the people, was the lack of political involvement. And I was telling everybody there, I said, had it been that the partnership was in government, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa herself would have been there, her ministers would have been there, directing the chairman, the head of the Coast Guard, not a Coast Guard man, the head of the Coast Guard would have been there to see what we can do. If we have to get international help from Mexico, Houston, Guyana, wherever, we would have been on spot. And there was this complete absence of the government, of the company. And that is why decisions were not taken and they were delayed and so on. I don't want to say too much on that, but I think the voice of the family is very critical, because they will speak to the level of help. You know, I mean, the trade union, myself and others had to donate the biscuit and water and so on in the car park. Food, the next day, I think I sent lunches for members of the family. I think I did the next day, because there was this absence of a government that you could not provide 25 lunches for members of a family traumatized in a car park all day and night, their loved one trapped in a pipeline. The government did not even have the empathy. And I end with that point too. This is a government that simply does not care. Keith Rowley's attitude is, you can't do me nothing. You can't do me nothing. They do not care. When he talks about flood politics, that is an act of contempt. That is an indecent and obscene statement of a contempt against people who suffer. When you go to see the flood victims, they don't watch me as a politician, you know. They look at me as someone who is bringing help, who could bring help, who could help them to clear the water up, who could bring biscuit and who could bring sandwich, who could help you to get some water, something that they need, a blanket, a mattress. That is not flood politics. That is empathy, that is compassion. And for Keith Rowley to say that, it really speaks to his cold-heartedness. I think if you rip his chest open, you will find a dark hole there. There's no heart.
Let me just say to the population, the best example of what we're talking about political influence, Balisé Juice, choosing a president that is beholden and a recruit of Rowley. The best example of what this constitution intended is Chairman Lynch. Because Chairman Lynch is not and has not been influenced or poisoned by Balisé Juice or any PNM. Yet he is selected by the PNM. He's paid for by the taxpayers' money through the PNM. He was put in charge of the Commission of Inquiry by the PNM, but he is fiercely independent, intelligent, and he's conducting his business with a view to getting what is best for the population. That is the intention of the Constitution. That is the intention of what you need in President's house. Not somebody who is going to do whatever Rowley say, to do whatever Imbot say, to fire and to be the Balisé Juice signer of anything in politics across the board. Chairman Lynch is a breath of fresh air, and that is what this Constitution intended. He's intelligent, fiercely independent, and wants to get to the truth, not just taking or draws in a pay just to say he draw, he pay. He's doing a job, and the entire country is impressed because of his independence, his intelligence, and his wherewithal. He is a man with fortitude. That is what we're talking about. And that is why Kangaloo must wait. Wait, Kangaloo, wait.
We have one last question. Yesterday, in reference to the death of young Kylie Maloney, the Prime Minister said that relatives are protecting criminals who they know to have high-powered weapons and so forth. And he wants more people to come forward. But in recent times, we've seen the death of state witnesses and whistleblowers and so. Do you think the public has confidence that they can come forward?
There are several matters here that the Prime Minister, I don't think he has the capacity to understand. Let's start that. He doesn't have a capacity at all to understand this. There is a lack of confidence in the police service. Police don't have confidence in the police service. Forget citizens. Police don't have confidence in the police service. There's a lack of confidence in witness protection. This society now, I regret to say, is unpoliced. Police are involved in what is called soft administrative work. They give out tickets for seatbelt, for drunk driving, for parking bad. They escort big truck on the road and so on with motorbike and cars because you're carrying heavy equipment. They do what's called soft administrative work. The policing itself in this society, patrolling and everything to do with policing, has more or less collapsed. People don't have confidence in the police. That is something you have to address with institutional change, a radical reform of the police service and so on. People don't have confidence. So if people have information, they are scared that they will come and give the police officer or report in a police station, person A has guns and so on, and they will be killed. That is a reality. So this is why it was always important, as Gary Griffith understood well, to invest in technology, to invest in state-of-the-art equipment, to increase manpower, because we knew that people themselves will not come forward. When the government bought the scanners, it was because if you are driving along the road and you have guns in the trunk, the scanners will pick it up. You don't need a witness. You don't need, Keith Rowley, you don't need a family member to tell you somebody driving in a car with a high-powered weapon. The scanner will pick it up and then you will intervene, reasonable cause, and you will charge, you will arrest, and maybe you convict. So that is why you have to invest in the technology. So Keith Rowley, his government has presided over a situation, the highest murder rate in history, but the lowest confidence in law enforcement in history. And sadly, he's doing nothing. When you keep Fitzgerald Hines as Minister of National Security, what are you telling the country? This is a man who said when children was ducking from bullet, he said they overreact. But yet, when they fling water on him, he ran. He ran from water and accused children ducking from bullet as overreacting when he ran from water. And this man is National Security Minister. That speaks volumes, and that really is where the problem lies. Okay, some closing remarks.
Though I went too long this morning, thank you for listening, but it's very important, it's critical, and the United National Congress stays on top of all the issues to share with you. Our democracy is under threat, and this has been and continues to be the darkest days for Trinidad and Tobago. We need change, and Keith Rowley, while some of you may have heard and dipping your finger, not knowing him and not understanding, he has shown you who he is, and you must reject him. They keep asking, oh, what can you do? What can you do? Well, really and truly, all we can do is get you to vote for the UNC. Vote for Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Vote for Dr. Moonilal. Vote for Lakram Bodo. Vote for Michelle Benjamin. Vote for Jerlene John. Vote for Wade Mark. Vote for David Nackett. Vote for Dinesh Rambali. Vote for Khadija Amin. Vote for people who will care and go into cabinet to fight for you, not people who want to put a UNC son on the president's house like what Rowley wants to do. This is not Balizé country. This is not PNM country. We must rid the entire country of the PNM.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you all.